Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
The intellectual history of science is populated by foundational texts, whose full significance became apparent only to subsequent generations, their initial purpose serving as a vessel for concepts of far greater reach. Within this tradition, the 1823 doctoral dissertation by the Bohemian physiologist Jan Evangelista Purkyne, titled Commentatio de examen physiologico organi visus et systematis cutaneae, stands as a monument to systematic observation, while the prompt references the year 1834 and a descriptive German title. The seminal work, containing his analysis of fingerprints, is this earlier Latin thesis, its section concerning the cutaneous system, a brief but profoundly insightful segment, offers a detailed taxonomy of the papillary ridges of the fingertips. This essay will undertake a direct and systematic evaluation of the claims, frameworks, and specific arguments presented within that pivotal section of Purkyne's work. It will move sequentially through the logical progression of his analysis, from his initial anatomical premise to the creation of his classification system and the implicit suggestions of his findings. The objective is to assess the internal coherence, methodological rigor, and conceptual innovation of his claims as he himself presented them, exploring the intellectual architecture of a work that laid the structural groundwork for a field its author never intended to found. Section 1. The physiological premise and anatomical grounding. Purkyne's inquiry into the furrow lines of the finger pads begins with a firm and explicit physiological orientation. His work is situated within a broader investigation of the cutaneous system as an organ of perception, a tactile interface between the self and the external world. The opening paragraphs of this section establish his primary claim that the intricate patterns of ridges and furrows on the palmar and plantar surfaces are functional anatomical structures designed to enhance the sense of touch. He posits that these ridges, which he termed Furchenlinien, increase the surface area available for sensory reception and provide a textured grip, modulating the pressure and vibration transmitted to the underlying nerve endings. His evaluation proceeds from a microscopic level of detail. He describes the arrangement of the papillary ridges in parallel and curving lines, and he is among the first to systematically note the presence of tiny pores along their crests, correctly identifying them as the outlets of sudoriferous or sweat glands. The core argument here is one of biological utility. The evidence he presents is observational and anatomical. He meticulously describes the physical reality of the ridges and connects this reality to a functional hypothesis rooted in the principles of physiology. The strength of this initial claim lies in its logical coherence and its foundation in direct, magnified observation. He presents the skin surface with the precision of a cartographer mapping a new territory, framing his entire subsequent analysis within this functional, biological context. His argument is that these are designed structures, and their complex arrangement warrants a deeper, more systematic categorization to fully understand their form and, by extension, their purpose. The reader is led to understand the fingertip as a sophisticated sensory apparatus, with the papillary lines being its essential operational component. Section 2. The creation of a systematic taxonomy. The central and most enduring contribution of Purkyne's work is the formal classification system he proposes for the patterns of the papillary ridges. This represents a monumental leap from anecdotal observation to scientific taxonomy. He puts forth the claim that the immense variety of patterns can be organized into a finite set of fundamental types. His methodology is one of empirical grouping, where Hugh identifies and names 9 distinct categories based on their geometric configurations. The first pattern he delineates is the arcus, or transverse curves, which we today call the simple arch. Its description is of ridges flowing from one side of the digit to the other with a gentle rise in the centre. The second, the stria longitudinalis centralis, or central longitudinal stria, describes a variation with a tent-like structure at the core, what modern analysis would term a tented arch. The third category, the stria obliqua, or oblique stria, is his designation for a simple loop, where ridges enter from one side, recurve and exit on the same side. The fourth classification, the clavis obliquus or oblique loop, appears to be a more narrowly defined loop pattern with a specific inclination. His fifth type, the amygdala or almond, describes a pattern with a central core shaped like an almond, now recognized as a form of wall. The sixth, spigula or spiral, and the seventh, ellipsis or ellipse, and the eighth, circulus or circle, are all variations on the wall pattern, distinguished by the specific geometry of their central formations. The ninth and final category, the vortex duplicatus, or double wall, describes the composite pattern formed by two interlocked loops. The fundamental claim, evaluated here, is that these 9 patterns constitute a comprehensive and logical system for categorizing the diversity of human fingerprints. The evidence is the system itself. Purkyne provides clear, albeit brief, Latin descriptions for each type. The rigor of this section is found in its systematic nature. He has imposed order upon apparent chaos. The evaluation of this claim from a modern perspective reveals both its brilliance and its slight overspecification. His 9 types are empirically valid. One can indeed find examples matching each description. He correctly identified the 3 principal pattern families that would form the basis of all later systems: the arch, the loop, and the wall. His arcus and stria longitudinalis centralis are arches, his stria obliqua and clavis obliquus are loops. The remaining 5 categories are all variations of the wall. The genius of his claim is the establishment of classification itself as a valid scientific endeavor for this subject. The system is coherent, with each category defined by a distinct morphological characteristic. He advances the argument that these patterns are stable and classifiable biological markers, moving them from the realm of curiosities into the domain of anatomical science. Section 3. The observation of uniqueness and implied permanence within the sparse prose of his dissertation. Purkyne makes an observation that carries profound, though largely undeveloped, implications in presenting his ninefold classification. He notes the remarkable variety and intricate detail present within each category. He effectively claims that while the general patterns are classifiable, the specific arrangement of ridges within any given pattern is unique to the individual. He does this without grand pronouncements. The claim is embedded in his detailed observational approach. By creating a system designed to capture variation, he implicitly highlights the endlessness of that variation. He states that the arrangements are admirably diversified, and his very act of creating 9 types instead of 2 or 3 speaks to his recognition of the deep complexity before him. The argument for uniqueness is therefore an emergent property of his taxonomic work. He provides the intellectual framework through which individuality becomes scientifically observable. The evaluation of this claim requires careful reading. Purkyne's focus remained entirely physiological. His goal was to understand the skin as a functioning organ. The observation of unique patterns was a finding tangential to his primary thesis, a fascinating detail uncovered during his systematic sorting. He makes no argument for using these patterns for personal identification. That application lay completely outside his intellectual horizon. The strength of his claim to uniqueness is thus rooted in its empirical purity. It is a direct report of an observed phenomenon. The subsequent history of dactyloscopy has overwhelmingly validated this observation, transforming his passing comment into the cornerstone of a new science. The irony, a subtle thread of intellectual humour woven into history, is that the very tool for classifying humanity for forensic purposes was forged by a man whose ambitions were solely to understand its biological construction. His work provided the vocabulary and the categories, a necessary prelude to any system that would rely on comparing one print to an. Section 4. Methodological innovation and the standard of evidence, the final element of Purkyne's, work to evaluate is his methodology and the standard of evidence he applied. The primary claim here is implicit that the study of the skin's surface merits the same level of empirical rigor as the study of any other organ system. Before his work, observations of fingerprints by figures like Nehemiah Grew and Marcello Malpica were largely descriptive and isolated. They saw the ridges and noted their existence. Purkyne's contribution was methodological. He applied the principles of systematic biology to the subject. His method involved 3 distinct steps: direct and magnified observation of the anatomical features, the formulation of a hypothesis regarding their physiological function, and the creation of a comprehensive taxonomy to organize their diverse forms. The evidence for his methodological claim is the structure of his dissertation itself. It proceeds with unassailable logic from the general to the specific, from anatomy to classification. He treated the patterns as legitimate biological data, worthy of being sorted, named, and understood. This approach was revolutionary for the topic. He established a new standard of evidence, one that required more than mere acknowledgement of the ridges' existence. It required their rigorous categorization. Evaluating this methodological claim reveals its deep impact. By creating a system, however imperfect or overly detailed it might seem to subsequent classifiers, he made the variations in fingerprints scientifically tractable. He turned them into a quantifiable, comparable set of data. This methodological framework, this insistence on systematic classification, is perhaps his greatest and most abstract contribution. It is the conceptual engine that powered all later developments. He demonstrated how to look at fingerprints scientifically, providing a lens and a language that would ultimately enable others, decades later, to see their potential for identification. The soundness of his approach is validated by the fact that the later, more practical systems of Francis Galton and Edward Henry were refinements and simplifications of his taxonomic principle rather than wholesale replacements. They built upon the foundation of his method. In conclusion, a direct evaluation of the internal claims within Jan Evangelista Purkyne's 1823 dissertation reveals a work of exceptional scientific insight and methodological rigor. His primary claim, that the papillary ridges serve a physiological purpose in enhancing tactile sense, is a sound and well-argued hypothesis grounded in careful anatomical observation. His central achievement, the ninefold classification system, represents a successful and pioneering claim for the systematic ordering of fingerprint patterns, providing the first scientific taxonomy for the subject. While its detail was later streamlined, its core concepts of the arch, loop, and wall families proved foundational and enduring. His tertiary claim, an observation of the immense variety and implied uniqueness of these patterns, was a secondary finding whose monumental importance was realized by others. Finally, his implicit methodological claim that the skin's surface patterns are a subject worthy of rigorous, systematic biological study revolutionized the field, establishing the very framework for future inquiry. Purkyne's work is a testament to the power of pure observation and classification. He sought to understand the design of the human body, and in meticulously documenting one small part of it, he furnished the essential intellectual tools for a completely different and unforeseen human endeavour. The significance of his claims, assessed on their own terms and within their original context, is that of a master physiologist imposing scientific order on natural complexity, an act whose echoes would reshape the concepts of identity and evidence in the century that followed.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.